Hi, my name is Robert Johnson, but sometimes I go by Bob. I'm from a little town in the middle of Illinois called Bloomington. When I was younger, I was very intelligent, but I barely graduated high school. It really didn't interest me that much. When I was a senior in high school, I got my pilot's license. I enjoyed flying because it was like a puzzle. Puzzles and riddles interested me a lot. My dad was a city clerk. He worked with attorneys all the time and decided to go back to school to get his law degree. He graduated top of his class from Wesleyan Law School. Eventually, he was hired by State Farm to handle their legal work. A few years later after he was hired, I went to work for State Farm. My main responsibilities were generalized office work and keeping the machines working properly. I worked a lot with keyboards and fixing them, and it was really boring. In December of 1941, Japan bombed Pearl Harbor. President Roosevelt declared a state of war. It was then when I decided to enlist in the service. My dad recommended I enlist in the Navy. I was shipped to the Stevens Hotel in Chicago where I was sworn in. I was assigned to the Great Lakes Naval Training Station. It was here where I completed my basic training. I love the feeling of serving my country and what it stood for. Before shipping us out to war, we each needed a thorough physical exam. I thought I had nothing to worry about. Turns out my lungs had a considerable amount of scar tissue and I had suffered from tuberculosis. I was given an honorable discharge from the Navy. I then tried to register in the Army, but they also turned me away. I was officially a 4F. I wasn't a draft dodger, I wanted a defense job. Vice President of General Motors gave me the best advice in my life. I was told to go to school to become an engineer. Engineers solve puzzles and got to create puzzles of their own. I knew I would enjoy this job. I packed up my things and was off to Iowa State College. Shortly after, I fell in love with a girl named Charlotte Nutty. We got married April 5th, 1945. The war ended in August of 1945. I was deep into my studies at this point. I was advised to prepare a thesis on my work. This thesis got me elected president of the Institute of Aeronautical Sciences. As a part of being president, I needed to organize the annual joint meeting for all engineering colleges. I needed to find a prominent speaker. A terrible storm hit and my speaker was stuck in Chicago. Charlotte and I searched for a new speaker, but we were out of time, so I had to be the speaker. I presented my thesis about a new way to propel helicopters in front of many prominent deans, educators, and officers. After my speech, I was confronted by the dean and department head of engineering. I was pulled into a room full of important people and my notes were taken from me. I was being accused of plagiarism. The dean told me to recreate my notes and bring them to him in 48 hours. Until then, I was under house arrest. My notes would be nearly impossible to recreate. I tried over and over and over again to correct my calculations, but I couldn't get them to come out right. Charlotte was a big supporter of me. She continually gave me words of wisdom and increased my confidence. I finally got my calculations to come out right. 48 hours later, I handed in my notes to the Dean, Navy, and FBI, and they are convinced it was the real deal. The naval officer explained to me that they were developing a top-secret project involving a military aircraft similar to mine. Then they offered me a job on a top-secret project called Bumblebee. Even though I was involved, my research was finished too late to be involved in World War II. Years later, I came down with pneumonia. The doctor I went to see was the same doctor that classified me as 4F. As luck would have it, I didn't have tuberculosis at all. I was misdiagnosed, and all of this happened for nothing. I could have been in the Navy after all. I became grateful for the misdiagnosis and realized that I've lived a long, happy life.